What's up, guys? Today we're going to be working on the Unit 1 test review. All right, here we go. First question says, points D, E, and F are collinear. That word collinear means that those points are on the same line. So, and it says that E is somewhere between point D and point F. So it could look something like that. All right, it tells me here that DF is 42. So the distance from D to F is 42. And the distance from D to E, DE is 3x plus 6. And EF is 2x plus 12. 2. There it is. Cool. And we're supposed to find X and then eventually find DE. So to do this, point E is just somewhere between D and F. It's not the midpoint, so that's not the middle. So what we are able to say is we're able to say that DE, the distance from D to E, plus the distance from E to F. So this distance DE, when added to the length here from E to F, will go all the way across from D to F. That's called our segment addition postulate. All right. So since DE is worth 3x plus 6, I'll be like, all right, DE, you're 3x plus 6. EF is worth 2x plus 12. So I'll replace that. I'll substitute that with 2x plus 12. My pen is not writing very good today. I don't know what its deal is. And it's got to be equal to the whole thing. Part plus part equals whole. And DF, the whole thing, is 42. There it is. So because those 3x's and 2x's there are on the same side of the equation, here, let's put a line dividing our equation. And because the 3x and 2x are on the same side, we're going to combine those and get 5x. And then we have our constants here, 6 and 12, and they're both positives. Positive 6 plus 12. So we're going to call that plus 18. Equals 42. Cool. We have a little two-step equation. We'll start with subtracting 18 on both sides. And I've got 5x equals 42 minus 18. What is 42 minus 18? That's going to be 24. And then we'll divide by 5 on both sides. But that's a decimal. We'll be okay. And we've got x equals 24 divided by 5 is going to be, let's see, 4 and 4 fifths, 4.8. Probably. All right, and then we're going to take that and we're going to plug it in to figure out what DE is. So DE, because that's what the question's asking for, DE is 3x plus 6, but we know that x is worth 4.8. So I'm going to get my handy-dandy calculator and do 3 times 4.8. All right, 3 times 4.8. I got 14.4, and then I'm adding 6, and I got 20.4. All right, so I plugged it in for DE and got 20.4. Cool. All right, moving on. Up next, I have two angles, DEF and XYZ, and it tells me that they're complementary. So complementary to me means that they have a sum of 90 degrees. So make sure you remember that complementary means they add up to 90 degrees. So this is another situation, kind of like what we just did with the part plus part equals the whole thing. So the previous question was adding two segments together, part plus part equals the whole. And this one's the same style. It's going to be the part plus the part equals the whole thing. But this time, because it says complementary, the whole thing means 90 degrees. So I'll be adding my two angles together, all right? And those two angles are measure of angle. So the two angles are DEF, and we'll be adding the measure of angle XYZ. So we'll be adding those two together, and it needs to add up to the whole thing. And because it says complementary, the whole thing is 90 degrees. All right, so this problem is actually kind of similar to the last one. It tells me that angle DEF is 4x plus 10, so 4x plus 10. Man, my pen is really not writing well today. And XYZ is 2x minus 4. And it needs to equal the 90. And again, when I have the x's on the same side, I combine them. So that's 6 x's. And then I have my constants, positive 10 minus 4. So I combine them, 10 plus negative 4, 10 minus 4. And we have another two-step equation, subtract 6. And I got 6x equals 84. And divide. And I got x equals, let's see, that's going to be, I'm guessing 14. 84 divided by 6. Oh, yeah. But again, we're not solving for x. I mean, we are, but that's only part of it. We need to figure out what XYZ is. So the measure of angle XYZ is 2x minus 4. And I know that x is 14, so that's 2 times 14 minus 4. That's 28 minus 4, which is 24. So 24 degrees. All right, guys. So those two problems were very similar. Part plus part equals the whole thing. And for number 2, we had to know the meaning of complementary. On this one, we have a linear pair. Okay. So we need to remember that linear pair is two angles, and when you put them together, it makes a straight line. So I'm going to draw a straight line, and I'm going to split it, and there's my two angles. That's a linear pair, right? One of them is RST, and the other's TSU, and I see that they both have the letter, they both have an S and a T in it. So that's cool. So the first one is RST. And the other angle was angle TSU. All right, so there's my linear pair. What are we doing with these things? Select all that apply. Now on the test, I'll tell you, hey, 3 of them, you need to pick 3. You need to pick 2. I'll tell you how many to pick. All right, the first one says that RST plus TSU equals 180. Well, do they? Do these two angles together add up to 180 degrees? Yes, they do. So I would select that one. All linear pairs add up to 180 degrees. All linear pairs are supplementary. All right, moving on. The angles are adjacent. Adjacent means next to each other. These two angles are definitely next to each other, so that's a check so far. And they share ray ST. Well, this ray would be called ST because it starts at S and goes through T. So both of those are true. This one says RST and TSU are complementary. Remember, complementary means it equals 90 degrees. So no, those two angles don't equal 90 degrees. They equal 180 degrees. Is RSU a right angle? No. Are RS and U collinear? Yes. RS and U have to be collinear. They make a straight line. They make a linear pair. The only one that's not on the line is T. All right, and the angles form a straight angle. That's true. Together they form a straight angle. So this one I'd be like, all right, guys, there's 4 right answers for you to choose. All right, here's a cool question. I actually really like this question. The endpoints of a hypotenuse are 1, 2. So let's plot 1, 2. I drew my little graph down here, my coordinates. So I got 1 on the x-axis, 2 on the... So 1, 2 should be right here. 1, 2. So there's my little dot. And then the other one is 7, 8. So I'm at 7 on the x-axis. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the y-axis. So it should be right about there. So what we learned in class is that we could make a right triangle out of that. So I'm going to connect the sides to make a right triangle. I'm going to do a horizontal leg that goes just far enough and a vertical leg that goes just far enough, and it makes a right triangle with the right angle down here. It says, which of the following could be the third vertex, so the right angle of the triangle? Well, we found it. When I made that right triangle, I found that third vertex. And the coordinates for it on the x-axis are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the x-coordinate, and then up 2, so 2 for the y-coordinate. So one possible answer is 7, 2. But that's not the only triangle I can make. I can make a whole nother triangle by going the other direction. Instead of going over and then up, I could go up just far enough and then over and make another right triangle. And then maybe that would be my vertex. And if I do that, then my coordinates would have been a 1 on the x-axis, and a up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and an 8 on the y-axis. So 1, 8 would have been a right answer as well. And again, I would tell you, hey, there's 2 right answers there. There is a cheat code to do that. I'm not going to tell you the cheat code, but maybe you could figure it out. Up next, we got the midpoint is this. So it gives me the midpoint. This is weird that they call the endpoint M, so don't get deceived by that. I'm going to draw a picture. What we learned in class is the best way to do this one is to not use the formula, but draw the picture. So it tells me the midpoint is 6, -4. So the coordinates at the midpoint are 6, -4. One end point is M, and that's at 2, -6. And then there's another point N, and we need to find its coordinates. So to do that, we're going to have to say, hey, how do I change my x's? So my x's go from 2 to 6. So they increase, so it was adding. From 2 to 6, I added 4. Well, adding 4 gets you to the midpoint, right? So then do the same thing. It gets you halfway there, so do it again. Add 4 more. And make sure you don't make the same mistake we made in class. Make sure you say, okay, I was at 6, and then I'm adding 4 to that 6, so that's going to take me to 10. So I know my x coordinate is going to be 10. All right, now let's do the y-coordinate. So I was already at -6, and then I moved to -4. Well, I'm still negative, but I increased, I added 2. So that means to go the rest of the way, I need to add 2 more. So -4 plus 2 should take me to -2. So my y-coordinate's -2. All right, and that was the name of it was point N. So it is kind of weird that they named the end point M. So that I could see that being tricky because usually we call the midpoint M. So don't be deceived, okay? The end points were M and N. And the midpoint was just some nameless point. All right. So for this one, I see midpoint. And all we're going to do to find the midpoint is use the formula, which is ready for us. And then what is the distance? So we're going to be using the distance formula. So for these questions, we're going to be using our formulas. All right. So I told you to label this. So that's going to be x1, y1, x2, y2. The midpoint formula, all you got to do is you got to take your x's and add them together. So just take your two x's and add them together. My x's are 12 and 28. So 12 plus 28. I'll add them together and I'll divide by 2. I'll do the same thing with my y's. I'll add them together. 14 plus 24. And I'll divide by 2. And that'll be the coordinates of my new midpoint. All right, so 12 plus 28. When I add those together, I get 30, 40 divided by 2. And when I add 14 and 24 together, I get 38 divided by 2. All right, and then lastly, I'll divide. And when I divide, I get 20 for my x coordinate. And 38 divided by 2 makes 19 for my y coordinate. So I had to kind of squeeze that in there, but there's my answer, 20, 19. It's an x coordinate, y coordinate. Next one, it has us finding the distance between the midpoint that we just found. So we've already got the midpoint, 2019, and we want to find the distance between that and point R, which is at 16, 18. So like I said, we want to label it first, x1, y1, x2, y2. And the distance formula says that the distance is equal to square root and inside the parentheses, we're going to be subtracting the two x's. So that's going to be 20 minus 16. I'm actually going to write it out for the video, but normally I would just put 4 in there. And the other one's going to be 19 minus 18. So normally I would just put 1 in there, but I'm going to actually write it out for the video. It's 20 minus, so we would have to go through the order of operations, which starts with what's in the parentheses, and that's going to be 4. So I've got 4 squared. And then over here I've got 19 minus 18, a 1 squared. 4 squared is 16. 1 squared is 1. So square root of 17. If that was an answer choice, that would be good. So if this was an option, pick it. Or I might have to punch it into my calculator. And when I do that, I get 4.123. And I would round it to the nearest tenth. And since the number after the tenth is just a 2, I won't round it up to 4.2. It'll just stay at 4.1. So the correct answer could either be the square root of 17 or 4.1. Alrighty, up next. This one's going to take a while. This problem, I'm going to have to use the distance formula. And because it's a triangle and we're trying to find the perimeter, I'm going to have to do the distance formula 3 times. So the first time I do it, it's going to be between the first 2 points, 2, 3 and 5, 11. I might skip a few steps to go kind of quick here. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Yeah, so I might skip a couple steps from my distance formula because you just watched it in the last example. So the distance formula is going to be the x's will get subtracted and squared, and the y's will get subtracted and squared. So it starts with x1 minus x2. So come over here and look at your x's. x1, x2. Subtract them. 2 minus 5. You should get negative 3. Then let's do the same with our y's. I get 3 and 11. So 3 minus 11, and I get negative 8. All right. So I know I skipped a little step there. I didn't show putting them in the formula. Negative 3 squared means negative 3 times itself. So negative 3 times negative 3 makes positive 9. Negative 8 times negative 8 makes 64. So square root of 73 would be a good answer for that. So, or I could get it as a decimal, 73 square rooted. I should wait till the very last step to be using decimals, but it ain't that big of a deal. So it's 8.544, and I'm not going to round until the end. So I'm going to leave it like that, and then I'll round at the very end. So there's one of my distances. Now let's do another set of points. So we did the first 2. Now let's do the second 2. So 511 and 93. All right, 511, 93. So that would be our x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so again, I'm going to skip a few steps. I'm going to jump right to throwing them in here. And it's going to be 5 minus 9, which is negative 4. It's going to be 11 minus 3, which is 8. That's going to be a 16 plus 64, which makes square root of 80. Which is about 8.944. So I've got 2 of my distances. Let's get one more. And this time, so I've already used the first 2. I've already used the second 2. Now let's use the first and last. All right, so that's a 2, 3 and a 9, 3. And again, we'll do the same thing. The formula, oh shoot, I should start that. It's gonna be square root, distance formula, right? So I'm subtracting my x's, 2 minus 9. 2 minus 9 is negative 7. And then I'm subtracting my y's, 3 minus 3, 0. So that's gonna be negative 7 squared. So negative 7 times itself is 49. And then plus 0. So it's just square root of 49, which is just 7. So I've got my 3 numbers that I've got to add together. I've got to do the sum of those 3 numbers. So I'm adding them together right now. When I add them together, I get 24 point, and if I'm rounding, I get 24 point, I get about 24.5. So that's no bueno. I think that it was supposed to be this one. I think that the person who did this before me probably rounded early. So our perimeter should have been about 24.5. That's the closest option. And remember, the perimeter is just adding all the distances, okay? So we did a good job, even though our answer wasn't exactly there. So I had to add those three numbers. All right, on this next one, it's about constructions. So we've only done a few constructions, and this one we're supposed to put the steps in order to copy an angle. Ooh. So to copy an angle, let's kind of rethink how we did that. So I started with some angle. I was given some angle, and I want to copy it. So I think I plot a point first, and then I use my straight edge to draw a line. Okay, that's where I start. So now the steps will begin. So what I would do first is I would use my compass to, I would start at the pointy end of the vertex, and I would make an arc across here. Let's see if I can do that better. Make an arc across here. Yeah, something like that. So I would swipe it around to make an arc. That's the very first thing I would do. All right, and then, so that's number one. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that compass. I'm just going to move it down. I'm going to make the same arc on my other angle. So without changing the compass, draw the same arc. So step 2, right there. Do the same darn thing. Step 3 is the most important step. We're going to take our compass and we're going to put the pointy end on one intersection and the pencil end on the other intersection, and we're going to measure it. So measure the distance. That's step 3. And then we're going to mosey on down and do the same thing here, pointy end down there, and then swipe with the pencil end. A little swipe right there. And that'll be my new dot for me to draw my ray through. Oh, that was not very good. But anyway, those are supposed to end up being the same angle. So that would be step 4 down there, part D. So they were in order. How crazy is that? A, B, C, D. All right, so that was copying an angle. Up next, number 9 says, select all the steps where only the compass is used during the construction of an angle bisector. All right, and a compass is used for making arcs. So the ones that say drawing or making arcs are going to be the ones where I'm using the compass. So it should be A and B. We don't need a compass to connect the vertex to the arc intersection. We'll use a straight edge for that because we're just making a straight line. Drawing a straight edge line through the vertex and arc, that's like the same thing I just said. And then marking the intersection, no, you can mark it with just a dot. But anyways, just for a recap, to make an angle bisector, start with some angle. And what we'll do is we'll take our compass and we'll put the pointy end on the vertex and we'll just swipe, make one swipe. All right, now that I have made that swipe, I see my 2 intersection points. And I would take my compass and I would put the pointy end on that new intersection point and make a little swipe. I would do the same thing on the other intersection, make a little swipe, and I would have that new intersection. And that point should bisect the angle. Okay, not the best drawing. This is all freehand. But anyway, there's my angle bisector. All right, last one. And it says just match the construction with its name. So the first one I see that I started with one segment, AB, and then I finished with another segment, CD, and it matches AB. So this one would be a copied a segment. The second one, B, is me folding a piece of paper over. When I fold it over to where the A matches with the B, that M is the midpoint. So the midpoint means that I bisect it, I cut it in half. So that's a segment bisector. And then the last one, I started with one angle, I finished with two angles, so that's because I copied the angle. All right, guys, that's it. I know this was a crazy long video, but I was super thorough. So I hope you are so ready for your test on Friday.